Well, I think America's heart is on display here. This exhibit explores both the reality and the myth of the American West, and both are important. Here are more than the bits and pieces of a rough and gritty life, but the tangible remnants of a national legend.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and welcome to this month's Live From at the Reagan Library. Now, we typically do these on the first Wednesday of every month, but tomorrow here at the Reagan Library, we have Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy here. So we had to do this tonight on Tuesday, November 4th. So thank you so much for joining us and finding us. There's a bunch of music in the background that wasn't supposed to be playing, so I hope you can hear me. And to be honest, I hope I don't get too distracted or start dancing for you, but we're just going to dive in anyway. A few weeks ago, we opened up our brand new special exhibition. It's an exhibition that explores the real life grit and the silver screen glamour of the American cowboy. And so welcome here to Cowboys, History and Hollywood here at the Reagan Library, now open. And through this live from, we're going to explore the various topics and themes of this exhibition, as well as highlight a handful of the artifacts we have on display. Now, as always, my favorite part of this, we are going to engage live with you. So whether you're watching live on YouTube or on Facebook, please go to that chat box. Really important, you're going to the chat box, not the comment box. Go to that chat box, put in your name and where you're watching from, so I simply can say hello or ask a question about what I'm talking about or anything here at the Reagan Library. I'll do my best to answer those questions. I'm going to be going to those screens 5 or 6 times throughout this live from, so you have plenty of time to go in there and say hello. Don't be shy, it is my favorite part. So people have asked us, why are you doing an exhibition about cowboys at the Reagan Library? Well, the best way to describe that is to listen to President Reagan himself.
I seem to remember a famous country and western song warning mothers not to let their babies grow up to be cowboys. The song forgot to say that cowboys can sometimes grow up and be president.
I love that clip so much. So we're going to get into that in a little bit, but this exhibition has over 400 artifacts, over 300 authentic artifacts relating to the American cowboy dating back over 200 years, objects specifically relating to that presidential cowboy, and amazing props and costumes and objects from the Hollywood Western films and those legendary Western actors. And so we're going to get into all of it. If you are here at the Reagan Library and you are touring the Cowboy exhibition, the first story you are told in this exhibition is the cowboy both at home and on the trail. So we're going to do the same thing here in this live from. It starts here at home in our bunkhouse recreation. You should be seeing that on screen right now. The bunkhouse, of course, is a recreation, but every object you are seeing inside the bunkhouse is an authentic, true object dating back to those late 1800s, early 1900s. There's things you can see when you come here to explore it for yourself, but I'm going to mention one sort of trio set that's my favorite in the bunkhouse. The first is this original 1880 guitar that came within this original 1880 guitar coffin case, named because the case itself is shaped more like a coffin than a guitar. So much fun. And then you may not be able to see it on your screen, so it's something to come look for when you're here. I think my favorite piece of this collection is sort of tucked underneath the bed. So when you're here, look under the bunkhouse bed, and you will find the actual shipping crate that shipped this guitar and coffin case to the cowboy on the plains, wherever this man lived. And it's, from what I've been told, there are very, very few of these complete sets and shipping crates that still exist. So it's really cool that we have one here. Now, this bunkhouse, of course, is a recreation. But if you were to go back to those 1800s, early 1900s, and look at the bunkhouses sort of across the plains and whatnot, this is what a bunkhouse would typically look like. Now, many of them did have guitars in them. However, when the cowboy was on the trail, anything they were carrying were in the saddlebags of the horses, and it was really clunky to carry a guitar. So when the cowboy was on the road, he typically used a harmonica or maybe a small fiddle, but in their bunkhouse, you would find a guitar. So speaking of the cowboy on the road or on the trail, cowboys would go 12 hours a day, 10 to 15 miles a day for about a month on end, moving the cattle from place A to place B. And how were they eating? Well, they were eating because they were being followed. I think it's what you're seeing behind me, because a cook would follow along in a chuck wagon. Now, this wagon itself that is behind me, or that hopefully you're seeing on screen, the wagon is actually authentic to the 1800s. Our team just added the checkbox on top of it to try and give you a sense of idea of how cowboys would eat while on that dusty trail. So that's a lot of fun. Now, what's more important to a cowboy than his horse? His saddle. So also on display are some amazing saddles, all dating back to the 1800s. You should be seeing an 1880 Mother Hubbard saddle. They were modeled after the 1860 Mexican vaquero saddles that had a wider brim, which allowed the cowboy to have a more comfortable ride. Because again, remember, they're on the trail for 10 to 15 miles a day, 12 hours a day. So they wanted a more comfortable seat, and that's what the Mother Hubbard saddle shows. Also on display are a handful of original 1850 and 1860 Hermann Heiser saddles. They were named for Hermann Heiser, who was a German immigrant who actually moved to Denver, Colorado, and created these saddles, and these are all authentic saddles. So those are some of the items you will see from the cowboy here, from both sort of home and on the trail. So why don't we go to the screens for the first time? I'm going to pick up my handy dandy glasses and hope that a handful of you have said hello. I'm adjusting my eyes. There we go. I think that says maybe Lerma Baldesso. Thank you. Thank you for saying hello. Please do keep coming on. Just give me your name and where you're watching from so I can say hi or ask a question. I'm going to go back to the screens in about a minute, minute and a half. So please don't be shy. Just really easy. Just your name and where you're watching from so I can say hi. So part of this exhibition is Hollywood, and we are going to talk to you a lot about Hollywood. But before we really get into it, we're going to share a clip with you. You may remember the 1993 movie Tombstone, and Wyatt Earp was played by Kurt Russell. And Kurt was so kind to personally drive here to the Reagan Library and hand deliver some of his own props and items that he used as Wyatt Earp. And while he was here, we put him on camera and talked to him about the movie and different things. And one of the things he shared with us was his idea and remembrances of sort of the importance of the cowboy in the West. So we're going to show you that clip now.
I remember hearing my mom and dad talk about moving from the East to the West, and it was because it was open. I think that the West represents a mindset that's probably drawn from the basics of what we've read throughout history about certain people and what we've seen romanticized in movies, and it kind of all goes together to create this sense of a type of honesty, freedom, and authenticity that we want to exude. We want to live by it.
So when you're actually here at the Reagan Library, we have various screens throughout the entire exhibition of other portions of Kurt Russell's interview, so you can see more of it when you're here. So another thing about cowboys, right? You think about the cowboy and what comes to mind. A lot of times what comes to mind are their firearms. Now, what's really interesting is because of the Hollywood side of cowboys, many people picture cowboys as these gun-wielding outlaws. Well, that's actually not the case at all. Cowboys used guns really to protect their cattle from thieves when they were on the trail. In fact, their guns would often weigh so much and be so bulky in their sort of saddlebags that when they were on the trail actually moving, they would leave their weapons in the chuck wagon with the cook. But we have some original guns here on display from that cowboy era. They're pretty remarkable. And the first one I'm going to talk to you about is this 1873 Winchester. It's a 1 of 1,000. It's a very rare gun. In fact, when they were being sold, the manufacturer marketed it as the gun that won the West. It was known for its really quick receiver barrel set. It was much more accurate than a normal gun. So it's really unique and rare to have this gun on display. When you're here, you'll also see Remingtons and Colts and Smith & Wessons, again, all dating from the 1800s to early 1900s. We do have another 1873 Winchester on display. Now, this is a regular 1873. It's not one of the 1 of 1,000s. But why I like it so much, and hopefully you're seeing it on screen, one of the reasons why I like it so much is that it came with its actual beaded sheath made by its original owner, which was a Cree Indian. Now, let's go back for a second to that quote, that little video you saw of President Reagan joking that cowboys can grow up to be presidents. So of course we had to talk about presidential cowboys here at the Reagan Library as part of this exhibition. So we really focus on Teddy Roosevelt and Ronald Reagan. When you're here, you'll see all the things we have on display from Teddy Roosevelt, including his original buffalo coat, his traveling trunk, his 22 revolver, and even his cartridge belt. For Ronald Reagan, we actually have his actual Willie Jeep that he always drove himself when he was at his ranch, Rancho del Cielo, in the sort of Santa Ynez, Santa Barbara Mountains. We also have a 1976 belt buckle that Ronald and Nancy Reagan gifted to John Wayne, and actually the John Wayne family lent it back to us for this exhibition, which is a lot of fun. Now, one of Ronald Reagan's favorite authors was Louis L'Amour. Louis L'Amour wrote over 100 novels, wrote over 250 short stories, many of which were focused on the West. On display, we have his actual typewriter that he used to write many of these stories, and we even have the Congressional Gold Medal that President Reagan bestowed upon him that his wife brought to the Reagan Library for us to put on display. So that's really cool too. So this exhibition has a lot of other things. I'm going to get to them. I'm going to try going to screens one more time. I'm being told there might be something on there. So let's see. Mike from Virginia, thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. I'm being told that we're not being broadcasting on YouTube. However, we are getting some people responding on YouTube. So for those of you who might be having trouble on YouTube, first of all, thank you for finding me on Facebook, but maybe refresh because I am being told we are broadcasting. You are watching from Philippines. That's impressive. I have no idea what time it is there. Thank you so much for tuning in. That's really amazing. We so badly need President Reagan again. Couldn't agree more. We talk about that all the time here at the Reagan Library. And I don't know if you've ever been here, but you should come on out and really get a good dose of him here. Walking through these halls and through our museum galleries, you'll learn so much about him. So I'm going to go back to those screens again. So keep adding to it. So let's see, we've talked about that. How about what the cowboy wore? This exhibition has everything from original boots, hats, spurs, clothing. We also have an original pair of Levi's jeans. And in doing this exhibition, I learned a really fun fact that I'm going to share with all of you. So if you already know it, just bear with me. But I thought this was kind of cool. Back in the days of the cowboy, the late 1800s, they were trying to find a different kind of fabric for a cowboy to wear as pants. Leather was too hot, wool was too hot. They wanted a breathable fabric that would protect the cowboy and be durable enough for those long rides. So they found this fabric that was made out of twill from a city in Paris, and the city was called Nîmes, N-I-M-E-S. And in France, as in other European countries, when something is from that area, they add the word D-E in front of it. So it was from Nîmes, or de Nîmes, and the Nîmes became denim, which I just absolutely love. That is where the word denim came from. Fun fact, share it with your family. And you can tell that these pants, I'm not sure if you're seeing them on screen or not, were actually worn by cowboys because you can see at the very bottom, they were completely eaten up by the spurs at the bottom. Also on display are a bunch of branding irons. Of course, that's how people would identify their cattle on the ranches. In addition to true cowboy brands, we also have a brand on display from John Wayne, and we even have a brand on display from Ronald Reagan. I can go back to the screens if there's anything on them. Let's try one more time. Let's see what we got up here. You're in Texas. That is as cowboy as it gets. You could probably teach me a couple things. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to go back to the screens again, so please do keep adding. I always do appreciate it. Something else that's really fun that I learned, right? This is how cowboys ranched in the 1800s and 1900s. They got on horseback. It could take them a month to get from one ranch to the next ranch. Do you know how they do it today? Did you know that cattle today are mostly herded by helicopter? You heard that right. We have on display a Robinson 22 helicopter, which is one of the kinds of helicopters used to herd cattle. This helicopter, although it can fly like a helicopter, when it's herding cattle, it stays at about 300 feet off the ground, and it sort of moves the cattle. And then it's followed by an ATV. We have an ATV on display as well, so to kind of help the movement on the ground. When cowboys herded cattle on horseback, it could take them an entire month to move them across the plains. In the helicopters and the ATVs, it only takes 5 days. Pretty fun. So you can see an actual helicopter here. And in fact, the Robinson Company was so kind to us that when you're here, look toward the rotor and look for a very special marking. The Robinson Company added Ronald Reagan's Rancho del Cielo brand of the double R on their helicopter, which is really cool. So we've talked about Hollywood a little bit, so now we're going to get to the Hollywood section. So there are many, many objects here on display featuring Hollywood, from the old Westerns to the modern Yellowstone and Nope and Back to the Future and all these different things. But we're going to talk about some of the legends of Hollywood Westerns. So let's start with the Lone Ranger, Clayton Moore. We have on display his original Lone Ranger mask, his neck scarf, and some other items. And we are fortunate enough to get an interview with his daughter, Dawn. So let's hear a quick clip from that now.
Continuing the legacy of Clayton Moore is truly at the core of my being, to be honest. Being able to continue to burnish his legacy that he worked very hard to maintain is very important to me. The important thing is resilience. It's being self-reliant. It's being accountable. And I think those three things are the core of cowboy culture.
Now, you can't talk about Hollywood Westerns and Hollywood Cowboys and not talk about John Wayne. On display, we have a handful of items from John Wayne. Remember, we talked about his belt buckle earlier, but we also have his original costume from the movie, The Cowboy. That same day that Dawn Moore came in, John Wayne's granddaughter, Anita, came in. Let's hear a little clip from her.
I think continuing the legacy of my grandfather is the number one job of our family. We are happy to be here. We have his costume from the Cowboys, which was one of my favorite films because I was about the same age as those boys when they were filming. So it was amazing. And the whole story was so great. I think that the fact that people still know who he is amazing. We love it that people still know who he is 50 years later. It's amazing to be able to mingle it with Ronald Reagan pieces and Teddy Roosevelt pieces. I mean, this is an amazing exhibit.
So the singing cowboy was Gene Autry, but the king of the cowboys was Roy Rogers. And we have a lot of items on display from Roy Rogers, his wife Dale Evans, and just some really amazing things. But probably the highlight, I've watched people in this exhibition. I think the thing people enjoy the most is this last artifact we're going to share with you. When Roy Rogers did his movies and his TV shows, he was often featured alongside his horse, Trigger. And when Dale Evans was in movies or TV shows, she was often featured alongside her horse, Buttermilk. And when either of them were in TV or movies, they were often featured alongside their dog, Bullet. When each of them passed away, Roy Rogers felt that he owed it to them to not just sort of bury them in the ground. He wanted to keep their legacies alive. So he called in a taxidermist and he actually had them stuffed, and they are on display here as part of our exhibition. Let's hear a little bit from his granddaughter, Julie.
The thing that was so amazing about my grandparents was that what they were on screen was really who they were off screen. And they were who you hoped they would be. I was one of their grandchildren that got to see the everyday Roy and Dale, and they truly were authentic. It's very emotional to see all of this exhibit in here because it is so close to my heart growing up with all of this, and to see it all in one place and to be able to be with Dawn Moore and Anita Wayne. These three families are just a tiny piece of the cowboy culture that I feel like people really need a little bit more of today. And it's positive, and it's just Americana.
So again, we're just touching on the objects that are on display. There's so much more here to see. I do see one more question from the people on screen. Savannah's asking if there are any hands-on exhibitions Fetty would love to go. That's a great question. This exhibition, although mostly just things to sort of look at and experience, you can't talk about cowboys and not have a shooting range. So we do have an interactive section here within the galleries. It's a shooting range. Now, we didn't want people to be shooting animals or anything like that. So it's more Disneyland-esque, where you're shooting plates and stars and shapes and things like that. But it's a lot of fun. So come on out and experience that. No extra charge to do that. So it's a lot of fun. So if you tune into these, you'll know that sometimes we also show museum store items that are related to the exhibition. So our store went all out for Cowboys, and there are some incredible items on display. I'm going to show you three, just three. Simply go to reaganlibrary.com/store, and there's a section on there called Exhibits. And if you go into that, you'll see everything for Cowboy. But just scroll the store itself, because there's just amazing things in there. But for the Cowboy exhibit, we have original Stetson hats. But what's really great about the Stetson hats is that these are custom made for the Reagan Library. So these are one-of-a-kind Stetson hats. They are hand-trimmed, they are hand-formed. They have a beautiful image on the inside, and we carry many, many different hat sizes. So if you live locally, come on out, try them on, find the right size for you. You can also buy them online. So amazing Stetson hats, again, made just for us here at the Reagan Library. Also in our store, speaking of Stetson hats, is this gorgeous, very heavy book called Stetson American Icon. It's a beautiful color book that features cowboys, movie stars, country music artists, athletes wearing Stetson hats. And we've marked the page. Give me a second to open the book. Again, very heavy and unwieldy, but gorgeous. We marked the page where it has presidents in Stetsons, including Lyndon Johnson, but including Ronald Reagan. And what's so fun about this picture, it's our little secret. This is Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev, the Secretary of the Soviet Union, after Ronald Reagan left office. But if you know Stetson hats and you look at the picture very closely, you might be confused by it. And that's because when Mikhail Gorbachev put on his Stetson hat, he put it on backwards. And the president didn't have the heart to tell him that it was on backwards. So for every photo they took, every news interview they did, Mikhail Gorbachev's hat was backwards. But the book is just gorgeous, and it would be a treat for anyone to have. I believe it's like 320 pages. The last item we want to show that's in our store is spectacular. We have a custom-made saddle, a saddle you can actually use, that has the presidential seal on it. It has the dates that Ronald Reagan was president on it. And on the very back, I don't know if you can see it, but on the very back, it even has Ronald Reagan's signature embroidered into the back of the saddle. These are one of a kind. You can only get them here at the Reagan Library during the Cowboy exhibition. So something you should look at. So that's really it. I want to thank you guys all for joining us, especially on a Tuesday when you're used to joining us on Wednesday. Again, I just touched the surface. I know I've been yammering for quite some time, but again, there are 400 objects on display. So to learn more, to pre-purchase tickets, simply go to reaganlibrary.com/cowboys. That's plural, reaganlibrary.com/cowboys. Find out more, pre-purchase tickets, and find out anything else you want to find out. And again, tomorrow, Wednesday, November 5th, live from the Reagan Library at 6 p.m. Pacific, Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. Feel free to go to our YouTube channel if you're watching there, youtube.com/Reagan Foundation, and watch the live stream. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
American Cowboy remains a figure that is dear to the hearts of American people. The men and women of the Old West may not have been as slick as they were sometimes portrayed by Hollywood, but there was a certain integrity of character that shines through as we look back at them from the vantage place of history.
Take a trip to the Wild West with the Reagan Library's world premiere exhibition, Cowboys, History in Hollywood. Explore the real-life grit of the American cowboy.
The cowboy code is so vital to American culture.
It was loyalty, it was stand for the truth.
Come face to face with authentic cowboy gear spanning over 200 years of history, memorabilia of legendary actors, and objects from Hollywood classics, including Yellowstone and Gunsmoke. Cowboys, now open at the Reagan Library.